Let's go over windows and doors. Now, for this project, we're going to be using some sort of abstracted versions of windows, which are usually how you're going to start a project early on when you don't know a manufacturer or if you are still setting the window location. To place windows in Revit, it's going to be under the Architecture tab, and there is a window command under the Build tab. And when we select that, it's going to ask us to place this window on a wall. So windows are hosted elements. They need to be placed on walls. And before we place it, we can go over the properties and choose which kind of window we want. Now, I've given you some generic openings which don't have any sort of frame in them. They're just openings in a wall. There's also a fixed option for you, so I would choose either one of these. Note that in Revit there is a name. These are all different types of window families that are named, and we are naming for our convenience the width by the height, but that doesn't necessarily correspond to the width and the height of the element. You need to edit the type and make sure that the height and the width correspond to the name. If you're making a new family, you can actually name this whatever you want, and that can correspond to whatever width and height you want. So just keep in mind, if you're making a new window, like we will in a second, to rename it properly. So I'm going to go ahead and place a generic opening that's a 24 by 36. Let's click that again. Sometimes with the generic openings, you can't actually see the element because there's no modeled pieces. It's just a void, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to place on this facade here. And we placed it kind of in between a floor. That's okay for us right now, especially because we're in an abstracted model. And you can see that some constraints are starting to pop up. This is associating with Plan 2, but it's given a sill height of 10 foot 2 inches. So if we actually want to put this on the third floor, we can associate it with the third floor. Just know that the sill height won't change, but let's give it a sill height of 2 feet. And now it will associate properly with where we want to put it. And if we change the level, if we move Plan 3 or Level 3 up, the window will change with it. You can also move it if you go into an orthogonal view. You can use it with the Move command. You can also use the Align tool, which sometimes ends up being a little bit finicky with these generic openings. But those are just a couple methods to moving your window around. To specify the size of the window, keep in mind that these are families with parameters baked into them. So this 24 by 36, if we want to make this a little bit larger, we can go and edit the type. Rather than editing the dimensions of this 24 by 36 family, we are going to duplicate it, and let's call it 48 by 60. And we'll change the height to 60 inches and the width to 48 inches. So because I selected a family here that was placed and I'm duplicating it, I'm actually changing it to this family. So what it will do is it will change that element to the new size that you've prescribed. So you might have to move it around afterwards. We can always change it back too by selecting the opening and going on the drop down to our 24 by 36. You can also create similar from these windows. So if you want to place multiple, you can hover over the element and select the element and type CS, and you can start placing some windows. The process works very similarly for doors. So we're going to go to Architecture, Door. And here I've given you a flush family versus a sort of a generic opening for a door. Doors work slightly differently than windows in that they have to be hosted to the level and given a sill height offset. This is because doors are thresholds, and so they're associated with the plane that they're placed on, or the level that they're placed on. You can always change this to Plan 2 or Plan 3, and you can give it an offset of 2 feet. Just keep in mind that Normally the sill height will be pretty low, and that's usually to account for threshold changes from finished floor to exterior floor, and it's more important in the detailing process. Recreating a door here is a little bit more involved, but just pay attention to the height and the width constraints. There are now trim and trim projections associated with some of these families. What I would do for right now is play with the width and height if you want to change the door size, and also play with the trim and the thicknesses and see how the family responds. So that was the actual door thickness. And let's see the projection on the exterior. You can see that the trim has now changed. So that's the basics of window and door families at the massing and abstracted level in Revit.